Hello, beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes. And you can learn more about my offerings at my website, illuminating-souls.com. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a beautiful state of rest and hopefully fall asleep, if that is your intention. I say that because I know some of you listen during the day. So if you're here for the companionship and you're going to stay awake, then I hope this podcast helps you come into a place of loving, just knowing that you are loved and that the angels and I are grateful for this opportunity to keep you company. And right now, I am in the blanket fort, so broadcasting to you from the blanket fort here in Vallejo, California. As I've shared with you before, I put a big blanket over my head and over my monitor to help dampen the sound because I don't have a place to set up a sound booth, so I have this very cozy Sherpa-like blanket, and I don't know, it makes me so happy to come into the blanket fort because it feels like the rest of the world goes away, and it's like we're having a sleepover. Remember that from when you were kids? Did you ever have sleepovers? We used to have them, and we would have our sleeping bags. And usually we would sleep in somebody's basement, which was often tiled, so it was a hard surface, but we didn't seem to care. And there was something so wonderful about having a slumber party. And we could tell stories and talk, and you'd have to kind of whisper in low voices because you didn't want to keep the parents awake. So here we are. I'm in my blanket fort, and hopefully you are somewhere very cozy where you can snuggle on up and come into that sweet, sacred space where we can whisper to each other. And even though I won't be able to hear you whispering, I can feel you in my heart. So it's the next best thing. And I will share that as I'm recording this, it is early morning. It's about 6:45. And so I'm just getting my day started. And the energy this morning is so sweet. I just can't get over how sweet the energy is. I don't know what it's about, but this is my first thing that I am participating in today, recording this for you, and the energy is simply beautiful. I hope you can feel it. It feels like an invitation. It feels like an invitation to a spa day. Sweet, soothing, enriching. The kind of energy that just smooths away any worries or burdens that you might be carrying. energy can really help us with that. Energy, I know, sounds like this vague, theoretical idea. But I've had such profound experiences coming into intentional energy fields that this is one of the reasons that this is now my life's path. I think I have mentioned this before. I know I've talked to you about the University of Santa Monica where I got my degree in spiritual psychology. And the rhythm of the program was we would go to school one weekend a month. So Friday night, all day Saturday and Sunday. And so I would save up all of my triggers from the month. Just because I was in school didn't mean I didn't have any more issues to work through. If anything, often when we go on a healing journey, our issues become more pronounced because we're looking for them. And so all month long, I would catalog my grievances and my triggers, and I'm upset because, and I remember this from my childhood, and this happened at work, and I'm so sad about this situation. I mean, I was in it. And the most interesting thing would happen. I would walk into the building on Friday night, because it was at a physical location at that point, on 21st and Wilshire in Santa Monica. And even driving from Hollywood, where I worked, to school on Friday nights, I would be annoyed with people in traffic and going through my list of the things I wanted to process over the weekend. And then I would go into the building, which the energy there was just exquisite. I would be in the building for about 20 minutes, and my issues kind of evaporated. I would go into this place of almost euphoria. It was so interesting. We hadn't even had a process at that point. I just was in the energy field. And often on Friday nights we would start with our first trio, because the school was set up that we would go in trios where we would rotate through the positions of counselor, client, and observer. So when we were the client, we got to bring forward something we wanted to process. And so often that first Friday night trio, I was trying to remember what had me so upset during the month. And I found that pattern to be fascinating. Eventually, I would be able to reconstruct the tendrils of energy that had been troubling me so I could process them. But I became really enchanted with this idea that simply by being in an intentional energy field, healing takes place. We receive a respite. It's like coming into an elevator and going up to the 50,000th floor where 3D world gravity no longer plays with us in the same way. And this is one of my intentions for the podcast, that simply by listening, you are invited into this intentional energy field that has been cultivated for you to help you feel lighter, more yourself, liberated from the heaviness that may have found you during the day. Because I really believe that where two or more are gathered in divine light, that healing happens and miracles happen. And I believe this because this has been my experience for many years now. This work also is my medicine, and those of you who've taken classes with me know this. You know, if I'm deep in my earth girl material, and I am mercurial, just so you know, just because I do this work does not mean I live in a perpetual state of Zen. Oh no. I worry, and I get overwhelmed, and I get lost. All of those profoundly human experiences that result in exquisite poetry and art. It's not that I'm a poet or an artist, but I just mean, you know, those deep, deep experiences of the heart I have. And so often when I'm in the midst of something, one of the best things I can do is to teach a class or facilitate sessions, because that moment when I call in the light and I shift out of my earth girl mode and I open up to waves of divine wisdom and light and love, I receive it along with you. And it shifts for me. So take a breath in and receive. Because there is something about coming into these higher frequencies, even if you cannot feel it or sense it. They help us to transform. They shift us out of the rambling thoughts that sometimes perpetuate stories and experiences we no longer wish to embody. And they help us gain altitude and remember who we are. So in this beautiful, bright, sweet energy that is here with us tonight, I invite you to come into the angelic elevator and let's go up to the 50,000th floor, whatever that is. And I invite you to get out and look around at the brightness that is here for you. The other thing that I wanted to bring forward for you is gratitude. And I know often on the journey of self-growth we work with gratitude, right? I am grateful for, and then you list the things for which you are grateful. I am grateful for my home. I am grateful for my cats, whatever it is you're grateful for. But I want to put a spin on that. Let me reframe that. The angels want to put a spin on this right now. Truly, it is from them. They want you to experience the gratitude that they have for you. And they say thank you for the gift of your life. Thank you for the experiences that you are having here on the planet. Thank you for making it through another day. Thank you for the acts of kindness that you seed into this world. They say thank you for your empathy, for holding for others in your heart, for feeling so deeply. Thank you for your tears, and thank you for your laughter. Thank you for living another day here in this world. Thank you for your strength of heart and your tenderness. And feel the waves of gratitude that the angels have for you. You know, our lives are not sunshine and roses all the time. Hopefully they are sometimes, because, you know, there's ice cream in many flavors. and there are our companion animals, and there are sunsets, and there is summer fruit that is coming in season, right? There's laughing until our sides ache. We need more of that for sure. And there is holding in the loving with someone who is special to you. So there is sunshine and rainbows and unicorns in this life, but most days are ordinary, right? They just are, and we just are. And that is beautiful. It's beautiful. And you are beautiful. So the angels say thank you for this day. Thank you for showing up. Even if your way of showing up was napping all day and watching the latest episode of Real Housewives of fill in the blank. And nourishing yourself with bags of chips. Whatever you have done to get through this day, thank you. Thank you for being you. Because you being you makes this world a better place. You help bring a sense of light into this world. So thank you for being you. And the angels are already here. I'm hoping you can feel them, but I will call them in because I am a girl who loves to pray out loud and who loves the ritual of it. So take a nice breath in, allowing these waves of light and relaxation to come to your body. And beautiful angels on high, we welcome you here. And as we welcome you here, we feel you welcoming us into this sacred space of light. And angels, I ask that you bring beautiful waves of light to each of our beloveds listening to this message. That I know that you are aware of all that is transpiring, and the light that you bring to them is calibrated just for them. And angels, help to clear anything that does not belong to us. Anything that we no longer need to carry. Helping to lay down our burdens and our old stories that no longer reflect who we've really become. And angels, help us attune to this beautiful brightness that is here with us today, tonight, in the wee hours of the morning, whenever it is that you are listening. Help us to connect with this beautiful brightness that is here. This light that speaks of brighter tomorrows and the sweetness of potential, that seeds of serendipity and miracles are being sown in our names. That there's a gorgeous tapestry of love being woven throughout our lifetime. And there are beautiful experiences still to come. That each of us in our own way is opening to new dreams, new visions, new invitations that will help us embody even more of who we are. And that as we do, this energy is amplified and the ripples of love continue to move into this world. As each of us contributes to the evolution of consciousness that is taking place in this realm. And angels, I ask that you bring in waves of healing and light That perhaps we know what is up for healing, and perhaps there is that which is unknown to us but known to you. That we may bathe in the healing waters of the divine. That we may reconcile where we are in this moment. And that we may feel empowered and inspired as we continue to transform and grow. So beautiful ones, take a deep breath in. You are in a sacred energy field right now that has been calibrated just for you. That the angels know what is in your heart. They know your truth. And in this moment, it is so beautiful because I feel the seeds of invitation and of potential that are being created for you and for me and for us all. Beautiful opportunities. You know, sometimes we think we have to change, the 180-degree change. I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to move to another country. And if that is how you are guided to move forward, you absolutely have my blessing. But you know what else also helps create shifts is small iterative shifts. Sometimes just a shift of 1 degree can make all the difference in the world. And I'm at a time in my life where I really appreciate the small iterative shifts. That tends to be more the way I move. And so as I speak these words, the angels are showing that to me, that for us all, especially if you're feeling tired, like you don't have the energy to do anything or to evolve or to create, that the angels will also help to illuminate the low-hanging fruit, the path of ease for you, where maybe it's just a subtle shift, but that can create a whole new perspective for you. And for me, this is for me too. Isn't it wonderful that we get to be in it together? Thank you, angels. Thank you, angels, for this gift of this time together, for each of the beloveds listening to this message, wherever you are, whenever this is that you hear this. I feel the beauty of you, the beauty of your spirit, the truth of your heart, and you are very precious to me. Thank you for being you. Thank you for this moment. And you take another deep breath in and out, and you settle on in for a nice rest. And while you rest, the angels will be with you. And I'm going to tell you a story. Originally when I started recording this episode, I thought that I would read to you. I was going to read from Little Women, which we will get back to. But instead, I just am guided to ramble for a bit and share with you some stories from my life. And it seems appropriate to share with you about how I found my way to the angels. And I don't know that this will, I'll fit everything into one episode, There'll be lots of episodes where we'll talk about this, but this is what I'm going to share with you now. I've always been a girl with a bright imagination and daydreams. And for as long as I can remember, I have always imagined that there were beings or a realm where I was treated with kindness, and that was joyful. And often my fantasies and my daydreams were age appropriate, right, for wherever I was. This at the time did not feel like psychic experiences, so I'm not one of those people who saw angels since childhood. I don't want to give you that sense at all, but for instance, in kindergarten, I remembered daydreaming that there were fairies around and they could grant me wishes. And for some reason, they seemed to hover around the light in the bathroom at school. I don't know why. But that thought gave me comfort. So, for as long as I can remember, I have always been able to disengage from 3D reality and also, sort of in a parallel consciousness, engage beyond whatever I was experiencing in my life at that moment. And that parallel experience always was one that brought me comfort. So that's the first part, but I would have never said that was the angels or that there was anything mystical about it. I kind of thought everybody did that. I never talked about it. It was private, and I was never embarrassed about it, or I just kind of figured that everybody did that. You read a book, and the book continued after the chapters were over. You went to a movie, and you got to continue the movie in your mind. You had an imaginary friend, and they kept you company on the bus on the way to school. You know, I just kind of figured that's how it worked for everyone, and it was never anything I ever felt guided to contemplate or talk about with anybody. It was my inner world. So that would be the first part I'll share with you. And I grew up Jewish, and this is not going to be any sort of explanation about Judaism, because I am not the person to do that. But I will say that every once in a while there's a mention of angels, not in the, Archangel Michael with the big wings kind of way, but just this idea that perhaps there were benevolent messengers of God that existed. But I didn't necessarily feel any calling to them. It just was a part of, the myth of religion. I think the first time I had an awareness of that angels could be this kind of joyful, bright thought was in the 90s sometime when I read my first Sark book. I don't know how many of you have read her books. It's SARK, that stands for Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy. And she's written such wonderful books, including Succulent Wild Woman, which just, I think this week, is coming out with its 25th anniversary edition. And some in her books are whimsical and deep and wonderful, and every single one of her books I received something from. And in a huge way, her books were part of what gave me permission to become who I am, because she so boldly mirrored what it is to live an authentic, creative life. And in her books, every once in a while, it's not that they're about angels, but in addition to many of the other whimsical things she talks about, she would say, and angels are all around you, or something, some reference to angels, and then she would have a drawing of an angel. And I thought, that is a lovely thought. about. I didn't experience it as goosebumps or chills or she's speaking the truth. I just thought, that's lovely. I love the idea of angels being all around us, helping us on our path. And I kind of metabolized it like I did many of the things that she writes about. Like, I love that idea that I can write in a journal. I love the idea that I can be inspired. I love the idea that angels are all around us. And so that was one of my first awarenesses of contemplating angels as an archetype or beings or imagined or real who could help us on our path. I just, something about that felt whimsical and magical and joyful. So for instance, she writes, "You are an angel." This is from her. She has a wonderful card deck that used to be in print called Juicy Living Cards. They're no longer available, but I went into my deck to find this card for you. So she writes, "Clusters of angels all along your path wherever you go. There are clusters of angels on a mission. These angels surround your soul wherever you go and whatever happens." And so her beautiful writings about many things about life also had these little snippets about angels. And I just thought, that is so lovely. Like, that's lovely. I want to be a person who believes that, you know, when you're introduced to a concept that just feels like a yes. Like, okay, yeah, yes, angels. Clusters of angels on my path. So that was one of my first experiences metabolizing the idea of angels. Sort of opened the door to who I am now, but that planted a seed. And can I also just say, I highly encourage you to read her books. They're wonderful. And happy 25th anniversary to Succulent Wild Woman and Sark. Absolutely a book that shifted my life. You know, sometimes you read a book and it shifts something for you. You know how we were talking about sometimes we just have to shift by a few degrees. The Sark books absolutely opened me up to a life of creativity, of writing, of expansion, and of joy. So, thank you. Thank you, Sark. I love your books. And so that was my first shift, my pivot point perhaps, about the idea or the concept of angels. I loved the ways that she wove that into what she wrote, and I thought, yeah, I want to be a girl who believes that. That works for me. And then a few years later, I found my way to USM, and I shared a lot about that journey. If you go back and find, I think it was episode number 50, where I take you through my year of awakening. So now I'm in USM, having wonderful, amazing experiences. And not necessarily focusing on angels, more focusing on spirit, on God, on the authentic self, on authentic love, which all served me well in building a really powerful foundation for my connection with divine love and the generosity of spirit and what happens when we open to it. So at this point, the angels were really not calling to me. In episode 50, I share with you how one of my longings was to open to my mystical gifts. And I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't know how they would open. I didn't know. I felt like I was wandering around going, help me open to my mystical gifts. And I don't know what that means. And I think it was an evening. I was home at the computer, and I had friends who went to study with Doreen Virtue at the time. Doreen was teaching and writing about the angels. Now, if you're not familiar with her work, don't go look her up now, because she has gone through a 180-degree shift. She is now an evangelical Christian who has completely disowned all her prior work. And I respect her journey, right? We all get to choose what we believe, and so this episode is not going to be about that. It's going to be about what my experiences were with her in the early years of my development, because those are my stories to tell. And she has evolved in a way, in a very separate path from all of that, and I have stayed my path. So at the time, she had written several books, but one of the books for which she was most famous at that point was A Lightworker's Way, which talked a lot about the mystical and spiritual experiences she had been through, which included the angels. And I had some friends from USM who had taken her angel therapy practitioner class. And I remember at the time thinking, that is so sweet. I love that they found this. Like, this sounds really cool, and I'm so happy for them. And I say it that way because nothing inside of me said, oh my God, I need to do that. When they would tell me about it and they would do angel readings for me, I just thought it was lovely. And I was so happy for them, for their experience, and that they were opening to something new. And I enjoyed receiving readings from them. But nothing rumbled in me as, honey, this is your life path, girl, wake up. Instead, what happened was, as I was wandering around, asking, how do I open to my mystical gifts? One evening, I seem to recall it was an evening, I was on my computer and wandered to Doreen Virtue's site. She was teaching many classes at that time, but the two that caught my attention, one was a mediumship class. It was a small group mediumship class that I seem to remember was in 2004, the end of 2004. And I would come to find that that was actually about talking to dead people, which kind of freaked me out, but that was the class. And then in May of 2005, she was teaching angel therapy practitioner training in Glastonbury, England. And what I sensed and felt and heard while I was looking through the classes on her website was, if you want to get where you're going, take these two classes. The mediumship class, and I think it was October, and angel therapy practitioner training in Glastonbury. And don't whittle this down so it makes sense. Take these two classes. It was so clear. So I said, okay. I got out my credit card and I signed up for both of the classes, not really understanding where it would take me. So I'm pausing here because I'm trying to decide how much of this to share right now. Really, there's way more than an hour's worth of content here, so I'm going to sort of pick and choose a little bit. So I did the mediumship training with her and had some amazing experiences, which will be its own episode someday. And now we're getting ready for the angel therapy practitioner training in May in Glastonbury. Now, I had known about Glastonbury. I had a classmate at USM who traveled there all the time, and she worked with the goddess, and she had another priestess, I think, from Glastonbury come out to LA, and I had done a workshop with her at some point. So I don't know if the angel therapy practitioner training for me was more about the angels or more about Glastonbury, but I don't know that it really mattered. So I flew into Bristol and had a car service pick me up and take me to Glastonbury, and I met, 144 other people for this 4 or 5 day workshop. At the time, Doreen was a very gifted teacher, and the energy field that she cultivated was incredibly high. Oh, angels, you're so smart. Remember how earlier I was sharing with you that sometimes an energy field can create transformation, like I experienced at USM? Well, that was the kind of energy field Doreen was working with back then. I did not know those would be connected until I started telling you my story here. You guys, the angels, they're so smart. They knew this is where we would go. So, sorry, sometimes I'm just delighted by how things flow together. So there's 144 or so of us in this big auditorium at the hall in Glastonbury. And for any of you who have ever done any sort of mystical or psychic training, it is not uncommon to be super nervous when you're in a room with other people, because typically what most of us think is everyone else in this room is super psychic and I'm not. I'm the imposter. I'm the fraud. I'm going to be the one person who can't do this, and everybody else will be able to. That is typically what 99% of people in that room are thinking. So if you ever do go to a mystical training, just so you know, you're not the only one who feels that way. And of course, that is how I felt, because while I knew I had beautiful gifts when it came to spiritual psychology, being able to facilitate the loving wisdom and light, I knew I did that, but I really had no idea if I could connect with the angels. And I just knew I was supposed to be in the room. And back then, Doreen would just throw us into the deep end. There was no easy build. She would teach us the beats of a reading, and then she would have us pair off, and I was sure I couldn't do it. And listen, I have to tell you, I did not have any miraculous experiences as a reader when I was there. I don't have any cool story to share with you that says, and then I saw Archangel Michael in his blue robe. I don't recall any profound experiences as a practitioner over those 4 or 5 days. But I do remember learning more. Oh, this is how you connect with angels. This is what it feels like. These are the beats of a reading. These are some of the rituals. But a lot of what shifted for me was in the readings I received from other people in that room. There was this one woman I wish I could remember her name, and I wish I knew how to get in touch with her. We lost touch after our ATP. She was from Australia. So if you know who you are and you're listening, reach out. And she would get these visions in her readings and get these full body chills. And so we paired up and she gave me a reading, and this is what she told me. She said, This is who you are, and this is the work you're here to do. She said, you help people walk up a stairway of light. And then when they get to the top of the stairway, a big column of light comes in and illuminates them. And then they walk through their doorway. You don't go through their doorway with them. It's their doorway to go through. But you help them walk up the stairway of light. And you know what is so beautiful about that is exactly what I do. It's full on true. If any of you have worked with me for a period of time, you know that I help you walk up your stairway of light, not mine. I'm not training people to be Laurels in the world. I am here to help you open to who you are. But I'm a great guide, and I can help you walk up your stairway of light. And then you get your illumination and you walk through your doorway. It's your doorway to walk through. And I thought that was so beautiful. And part of that ATP training, we got to go to Stonehenge, which was really cool. And again, I did not have any big mystical experiences. I did not see, beings of light there. I just thought it was super cool to be there. And we went to Chalice Well, which again was amazing. I don't know, it's so interesting when I look back at my training. It's not as if I had these big, bold, mystical experiences, but it almost felt like I received an attunement. Something shifted for me. Our awakenings and our openings are not always bolts of lightning. Sometimes they're subtle. And at the time, she had a chat room. So this is before social media. She had a message board, as it'd be a better word for it. And anyone who had gone through her training would get to be on this message board. And the message board was wonderful back then. People were so supportive. And we got to learn and be mentored by other people who had gone through the training. And to get the certification, you had to do 20 practice readings, which was very unnerving. And so I did my 20 practice readings. I don't even remember them. Again, I don't have anything memorable to share with you about it. But somehow it felt like there was a tide pulling me into this experience with the angels. And so I learned a lot from Doreen. I learned different methods. I learned different philosophies. But at some point, it became mine. And this is, I think, what happens on our spiritual journeys. We have teachers and guides who open us up, but then it becomes our own. At least that's my favorite way of mentoring people. I am happy to teach you what I know, and then you have my full support in making it your own. And it began to seep in. I started doing practice sessions for people, which is a whole story for another day, but As my friend and coach at the time said, your practice sessions are not for you to get good at what you do. You're already really good. But they're for you to discover what a session with Laurel is going to be like. And what I discovered as I did my practice sessions is they became a blend of spiritual psychology that I had learned at USM and the angels that I had learned from Doreen. And it opened up an alchemy of the expression of my spiritual connection. And I discovered that this beautiful divine love that I had opened to at USM would be profoundly amplified and even more accessible as I worked with the angels. So when people have angel readings with me, they often will ask, who are my angels and what are their names and how many do I have? And I should tell you, I don't see in that way. I'm not saying there aren't other people who can and do, but my experience with the angels is much more Sark-like, right? Clusters of angels line your path. I feel them much more as a team, as a presence, as a sure thing, that I absolutely believe that every molecule of this universe has love. That the angels are here to bring us love, and as we learn to open to it, it becomes more present in our lives. I then would go to learn to channel, which again will be its own episode. I learned to channel. I took my first channeling class in 2007, but did not open to channel until it was 2008. And let me tell you, being able to directly channel from Josephus and the Wisdom Council and the angels, that just pumped things up even more. So that's how my journey with the angels started. The books from Sark, and I went through my USM experience and then went to Doreen, and it's like it metabolized in me. I love that word, metabolized, right? Because it speaks of some kind of alchemy, some kind of organic process that transforms. So my story isn't that I had this big aha, Archangel Michael at the foot of my bed saying, Laurel, Bleadon-Maffei, work with us now. Truthfully, that would have freaked me the heck out, so I'm glad that didn't happen. It was much more subtle, and it was the building of experiences. And it's like then one day it was there. It's a part of who I am. It's what I do. And I knew when I launched Illuminating Souls that it was going to be about the angels. So it's interesting. I'm thinking back to the timeline. I knew by March of 2005 that my destiny would include the angels, and I didn't do my angel therapy practitioner training until May. So interesting. I for some, I don't know how your past is for you. It sort of lives. For me, it lives in an abstract painting, and I have to go tease it out. So I guess I knew by that point that the angels were going to be my gig. I can't quite remember how I came to that, but I knew because in March of 2005, my friend and coach led me through a marketing exercise, which is when I gave voice to Illuminating Souls, or better put, Illuminating Souls gave voice to me, and the angels were absolutely a part of that. Huh. Okay, so somehow it all weaves together. It's all just a big abstract painting. If you think about the paintings of the Impressionists, right, there's dots of paint and it gives you the illusion of shape. That's how my past resides in my consciousness. It's not clear-cut timeline. It's impressionist. So that's kind of how I came to the angels. They found me, not in a big, bold stroke of color, but more like a slow build. Like there's love here. And when we open to the angels, it amplifies. So here we are. Here we are. Almost 20 years later. And I have helped thousands and thousands of people connect with the angels and help the angels connect with thousands and thousands of people. And it is the greatest joy of my life. So thank you, angels, Team Angels. They're the best coworkers ever, really. And thank you for letting me ramble my way through this part of my story and connect the dots. It's always interesting connecting the dots of our lives. We don't always see how things connect until we are sitting well on the other side of the river. But here we are. And I hope that you have been feeling the beautiful light flowing through. And know that you are loved and you have angels. I believe this with my whole heart and soul. And your angels are going to be watching over you. They're going to take good care of you. So you, beloved one, are precious. And I am deeply grateful for you. So you take good care and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.